The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
You are now logged into WarUp on the WPIAL, featuring your hosts, Greg Warnock and Jeff Upson. PA Power Wrestling. Pennsylvania is wrestling.
Welcome into WarUp on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson. And before we break down the WPIAL championships, we preview the PIAA championships. Jeffrey, you can't say anything to me for an entire show. 113 followers currently on Twitter, buddy.
Wow.
I beat your 100 challenge to me.
I'm proud of you. What can I say? I'm proud that you're up to over 100. You went from like 67 last week, so I hope you just continue to increase your followers.
Yeah, people I think just like me more than you. I think that's what it is.
I mean, whatever makes you sleep better at night, right?
I think that's a dig right there.
I'm not
I think it is.
No. I'm proud of you. I can't make fun of you for an entire episode. So
Is it hard?
It's very hard. I'm sort of like twiddling my thumbs right now. I'm not sure what to do. I have all these, snide remarks I want to say to you, but I'm refraining myself from doing that. So yeah, it's a little tough.
I think that's the biggest victory from over this past week. We got all these WPIAL championships to talk about, but I think this is the biggest victory right here.
Let's not. Yeah, no, you're right, Greg. That was it. That was it.
Well, let's start off in AA for the recap of the WPIAL championships. Burrell coming in as the top seed, so they had a bye in the opening round. Mount Pleasant took on Burgettstown in the 8-9 matchup. And first and foremost, I feel like Burgettstown feeds into Burrell every single year. But they wrestled Mount Pleasant. A couple of guys down for Burgettstown, and Mount Pleasant ends up coming out on top 41-33 in that matchup. Probably one of the tightest matches in the opening round. South Fayette over Fort Cherry, 54-15. McGuffey over Southside, 56-21. They had actually moved to Cannon McMillan because of a water break at McGuffey. Derry, again, beats Keystone Oak 64-15. Elizabeth Forward pulls the upset, the one that we, I think, talked about being the likely one to happen. Over Valley, 57-24. Best Center over Beaver, 48-25. And Freedom over Quaker Valley, 66-16. Not a lot of surprises, I feel like. I felt Mount Pleasant and Burgettstown was a toss-up, and I thought Elizabeth Forward could upend Valley. Yeah,
and I agree with you, and I thought maybe that was the one that we said if we were going to see an upset, that may have been it, but pretty much business as usual for the rest of the WPIAL.
And the seeds held for the quarterfinals going into the semis. Burrell defeats Mount Pleasant 62-12. McGuffey over South Fayette 38-31. Derry over Elizabeth Ford 47-25. And Freedom in a tight one against Best Center 35-33. Not surprising how close McGuffey and South Fayette was in that matchup. Came down to the wire. But Freedom, tough time against Best Center.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by that. I wasn't surprised about South Fayette and McGuffey. But I thought when Freedom was that close with Best Center, I thought Derry was looking even better at that point, But, yeah, a little surprising.
When you go into the semifinals, Burrell defeats McGuffey 42-25. I think the biggest storyline is that Trent Bechtold was not in a lineup for Burrell, and they still get it done to get to the finals.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the way Burrell wrestled McGuffey, and I was impressed with McGuffey overall. We'll talk more about them in a minute here, but they actually had Burrell. That was the closest match Burrell had of the tournament was against McGuffey in the semifinals.
Derry does defeat Freedom 36-27 to advance to the finals and guarantee themselves a spot into the PIAA tournament. And really is because of a couple of big matches that Derry got to go their way.
Yeah, and right off the bat at 126 pounds, Sean Broadway from Derry got a fall over ZJ Ward to Freedom. That was huge bonus points in a match that I thought Broadway, was definitely a little bit favored in that match, but that could have gone either way, I thought. But for them to get 6 right off the bat, I mean, they jumped out to I think it was an 18-point lead over Derry before Chase Kamara got a win. But, yeah, that was a good way to start it, and they ended it with Ty Zimmerman, the freshman, at 120 pounds, getting a decision over Kenny Dushek of Freedom, 8-2. So just closed out a really solid duel for Derry, and it's a reason why they made it to the finals.
And really, 126 and 120, I would say, were both swing matches. Could have went either way. And you take away those 9 points for Derry, it's 27-27. So those two matches going the other way, which very well could have for Freedom. Freedom ends up winning the duel.
Yeah, right, and that was the difference. So, good job to Derry and being able to get the job done.
The championship match, Burrell defeats Derry 50-23 to win their 12th straight WPIAL championship. Just a dominating performance all around for Burrell throughout the entire team tournament. McGuffey ends up being your third-place team in the WPIAL. They defeat Freedom 44-31.
Like I said, I'm very impressed with the way McGuffey wrestled. To come back and beat Freedom 44-31 and earn a spot potentially in the state tournament. They're wrestling in a play-in match tonight against Harbor Creek. But I was very impressed with him. McGuffey, wrestled. They beat South Fayette, a very tough South Fayette team. Gave Burrell all they could handle. Then they come back to finish in third. So a really good job by McGuffey.
And now, like you mentioned, they are wrestling actually, as we speak, they're wrestling Harbor Creek, the District 10 runner-up at Harbor Creek. In that match going on, the winner goes into Southern Columbia for the opening match in the PIAA Championships. Burrell will take on the winner of Muncie and Brockway in the top half of the bracket. Meanwhile, Derry gets the tough draw against Chestnut Ridge, opening up on the bottom half.
Really, all three of these matches are tough draws for the WPIAL. You look at the bracket, and as you mentioned, Burrell, the top finisher out of District 7, is going to wait for the winner between Muncie and Brockway, and I do believe that's going to be Muncie, and I think Muncie's going to give Burrell fits, especially if we don't see Trent Bechtold back in the lineup. He wasn't there over the weekend. But Burrell's, it seems like year after year, they're in these tough positions. Last year it was Line Mountain who upset them in that first round of action at Hershey. So Burrell's going to have to bring it early and often against Muncie. Muncie's, they're no joke. They gave Southern Columbia all they could handle, and Southern Columbia is one of the best teams in the state.
If Burrell can get past Muncie, they get the winner of Saucon Valley and Faith Christian. How do you like your chances there?
Yeah, that's going to be Saucon Valley, and I would expect that to be a closer match. So I honestly think that the winner of the Muncie-Burrell match is likely to get to the semifinals. Saucon Valley on paper looks really, really good, but I think when they stack up against a team like Burrell and Muncie, I'm not saying they're more. Yeah, I am saying they're more battle tested than Saucon Valley. So I think that may show in the quarterfinals. But honestly, Burrell and Muncie, I could see either one of them making to the semifinals. And
they would potentially face a Reynolds team, the top team in the state, in the semifinals. And Reynolds looks stronger than ever and looking like they're going to get back to the finals.
Yeah, I fully expect them to. And you can go on and check out my picks on PAPowerWrestling.com. Please don't send me your hate mail or death threats. Or don't.
He deserves it sometimes.
No, I'm not allowed to pick on you for an episode. You're not allowed to.
That wasn't part of the deal, man.
No, I'm making it part of the deal. So Reynolds, yeah, I think Reynolds is the team to beat. They're the ones that have the bullseye on the back and they're ready for that challenge. But yeah, Burrell sitting in a very difficult position. But if there's anyone who can pull it out, it's Josh Shields and the Burrell Buccaneers. I mean, those guys, they know how to wrestle.
Bottom half of the bracket, you have Boiling Springs, Chestnut Ridge, Brookville, Southern Columbia. Those are all the teams standing in the way for Derry, as well as McGuffey if they are able to defeat Harbor Creek here today. Pretty loaded bottom half of the bracket.
Yeah, definitely a loaded part of the bracket. I've said that on our last podcast yesterday. I said that it was just it's a tough draw for anyone on the bottom half. You got Boiling Springs, you got Chestnut Ridge, Derry, Brookville, Southern Columbia, and potentially Harbor Creek, McGuffey. So, and then throw in Northern Lebanon, the Cinderella story from last year. So yeah, the bottom half of the bracket's brutal. I really think I don't think they're going to get past Chestnut Ridge. Chestnut Ridge is just, they're a really strong team, top to bottom, even without their returning state medalist, Caden Cassidy. So I think Chestnut Ridge is most likely going to win that match. And honestly, I think Harbor Creek will probably get past McGuffey tonight. So
you look at Derry, though, they're going to have Chestnut Ridge, and you mentioned likely to struggle in that match. Do you think they can get a win, though, in the PIAA tournament? They'll face likely Huntington or Greenville in a consolation match.
Yeah, that could definitely happen. Especially when you look back at those wrestleback rounds, anything is possible. Traveling to Hershey and that atmosphere, and just there's so many factors that go into it. I think Derry has a chance to beat Huntington, and I think Huntington or Greenville, whatever team falls down there, if Derry does in fact lose. And if you look at my picks, I actually have Derry going winning 2 matches, beating Huntington and then beating Bishop McDevitt. So I would say that's a pretty good showing by the WPIAL, right?
Yeah, for sure. If we can get a couple of wins out of, it seems like really at times the second and third place teams don't even go to Hershey because they're both playing in a wrestle-in situation. Now you get the first and second place team to automatically go, but we've had a couple of years where WPIAL just had Burrell going.
Right, yeah. But like I said, Harbor Creek's a stout team. They're pretty solid top to bottom, so I think McGuffey's going to have trouble with them. But Derry, on the other hand, they could win a few matches. Speaking
of Burrell, the team that has just won 12 straight WPIAL championships, we're honored to be joined by their head coach, Josh Shields. Josh, thanks for joining us on the show.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, Josh, whenever we say you have won 12 straight WPIAL championships, is that hard to sink in a little bit and kind of just realize how much of an accomplishment that is for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously it's one of those things, we're living in the moment, and I'm sure 10, 15 years from now, it's something, us coaches and the wrestlers will look back and, who knows how long this will continue going. But, what this team, has accomplished over the past 12 years is truly remarkable. And each and every one of those championships was one in a different fashion, had to overcome some type of hurdle. It was a different team, each and every one. So it's, like I said, truly remarkable the success that this program has had the past 12 years. Like I said, each one is exciting and different, and each one we tackle it as a new challenge, each and every one.
Well, Josh, going into the WPIAL championships, you guys were without Trent Bechtold. I understand he's no longer with the team. Is that something that he will not be with you guys at Hershey as well? Then?
Yeah, he had some personal things that came up. And basically a few weeks back, he decided to part ways with the sport. So. We've moved on without him. We've had guys step up, fill that lineup, fill that spot in the lineup. He's a tough kid to replace, but, I feel we have the kids that are here now, the kids that want to be here, and they're really working hard to, finish the journey they started, back in October.
Well, you guys had a dominating run at Chartiers Houston to win the WPIAL championship, a 42-25 win over McGuffey, and then a 50-23 win over Derry. Did you expect to go into that one and the scores not be as close as they were?
Yeah, looking at the lineups, I thought both matches, whoever we were going to have, both in the finals, we looked at that McGuffey team, and that's a team that's really strong up top, and we knew that's where the matchup was going to come down to. We had to do our best, from 170 up to heavyweight, to minimize, the bonus points scored. If can't squeak in a win there, but really try to minimize the points scored. And then when we get to our strength for lineup, try to score as many bonus points as we could. And I think even in the Derry match as well, the team did a great job throughout. I think that we only had 3 pins against, 3 or 4 pins against. Maybe I think a total of 5. Major decision tech fall type matches, 5 bonus point matches that, Derry and McGuffey had against us. And that's really what those championships come down to, is minimizing the bonus points. And, looking down to the box score, seeing some of our guys up against some of their best guys and really eliminate the bonus points is, I think, what really made the difference and what was able to really widen that gap. They weren't scoring bonus points, we were scoring bonus points.
And Josh, I 100% agree with you. Looking at that on paper beforehand, you're thinking they may pick up a few more bonus points and they may not give up as many bonus points. But as you said, things definitely went your way in that match. And a really good Derry team, a team that is not too many holes in that lineup. So I think that just showed how, poised and focused your guys were. It seems like year after year, you always get the tough draw. You guys always end up, last year, there was Line Mountain. This year, most likely going to be Muncie. Muncie's a team that you were able to see up at King of the Mountain. What are your thoughts on sort of going into that matchup and saying, hey, guys, we can't take anything for granted here?
Yeah, no, I mean, the kids that now have been a part of this team for the past, 3 years, They know it's the PIAA state duels. There really is no real easy matches, especially, knowing the brackets beforehand. We knew we were going to have the 9-2 or the 4-2. We anticipated it being either, Muncie or Montoursville coming out of that district. So that's a team, looking at the Muncie team that's really, really solid team throughout. They're really strong down low. And they got a bunch of good guys to the middle and some guys up top. So they're really rounded team. It's going to be a battle right at the get-go. The kids know, like I said, we lost last year we lost the line. Mount basically came down to the last match. So the kids will be ready. And it's one of those matchups you look at, head-to-head. There's going to be a lot of big key matches between them. Our guys that ranked in the state for some of their guys that ranked in the state. And that's, so the coach, you got to smile in that type of situation because, you're expecting your big guns to go out there and beat their guys. So, I have confidence in our guys. So, we're just fine-tuning some details these next couple of days and can't wait to make the trip to Hershey.
Yeah, and this is definitely the match that I have circled, and I'm telling everyone you can't miss this match. I think I said that last year with the Line Mountain match, and I picked Muncie, and I caught a lot of slack on social media. I didn't. A lot of people were saying, "You're kidding me!" Come on, Burrell's the 12th-time WPIAL champions, and I think you prefer being the underdogs anyhow. So I'm doing you a favor, right? I'm helping you out.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Like I said, people always going to talk, but we understand that. Listen, we haven't placed in the top 4 in the state in 5 years. Since my first year as the head coach, the last time we finished in the top 4. So we really got to go out there. We got to earn that respect.
Right.
We've been the WPIAL champs for the 12th consecutive year, but we have our eyes set on a bigger prize. So right away we're going to have a test. That Muncie team, if that's a team we can pull away a win there, we're definitely going to be in the hunt for a medal. So we're excited for that test right off the get-go Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Josh. And if you wrestle anything like you did against Derry, as you said, your guys getting bonus points and not giving up bonus points. There's so many state-ranked guys between Muncie and Burrell going. A lot of them are head-to-head. So, it's going to be a heck of a match. It's going to be a barn burner. You're going to be up, moving around. You're not going to be sitting in your seat very often there at match. So, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, those refs are usually a little tougher than PIAA state team duels than they are some of the local tournaments and some of the WPIAL tournaments. So I know they're always asking me to be on my best behavior, but they know I always try. So it's always for the kids. I think some of the kids appreciate. I hear a lot of kids say, they like looking in the corner and seeing us coaches standing up. That just knows that I have their back out there, and anything can help. If that's the difference, 1-point match, then I'm all for it. But yeah, we're looking forward to the trip. That's for sure.
And then obviously if you guys can defeat Muncie, then really you have a nice shot to potentially get to the semifinals. And from there, like you mentioned, just really one win away from getting that medal, which is what all your kids have been talking about throughout the entire season.
Yeah, that's what we've been training all year. Each and every match, we get better. You look at, where this team started. I think we finished 18th in King of Mountain. Pretty sure Muncie was a top 10 there. They definitely outplaced us. But, we've really made progress throughout the year. And each and every dual meet, I think we've gotten better. And that's, as a coach, you want to see. You want to see that momentum. So let's hope these kids can carry, the performance they had this Saturday, into the Giants Center.
Well, Josh, we appreciate you taking a few minutes out to join us today. Congratulations on your 12th straight WPIAL championship, and best of luck as you guys head to Hershey.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I always like having this Monday evening call because that means we did something right. So thanks for having me, guys, and I'm sure I'll see you up at Hershey.
Yeah, I'll see you soon, Josh, and safe travels out to Hershey, okay?
Yeah, same to you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to Josh Shields of Burrell for joining us on the show, and always great talking to Josh. They just have the tradition and everything that they do there, and to win 12 straight WPIAL championships, it's just incredible.
You look at the age of some of these wrestlers that are freshmen and seniors now on the Burrell team, and going back 12 years. They were just little tykes running around, and that's how long Burrell's been at the top. And Eric Knopsler and I talked about this yesterday on our podcast about just the tradition, but the also you look at just the fact that they're doing it in the WPIAL, right? They're not doing this in a district with only 4 teams. They're doing this in a historically tough district, so it's even more impressive. But yeah, Burrell's just continue, and you can't ever pick them to not win the WPIAL, right? Until someone knocks them off.
It's been done, I would say, over the last 8 or 9 years. Every year someone picks someone different. This team's going to finally knock off Burrell. And there were a couple of years where it seemed like that could be the case, right? When they lost 6 state medalists off their team the one year. You thought, okay, this is the year. They're coming in and they made a hat. I think they had Dakota Delorier and really just that's about it coming back as far as that team. And they still somehow won a WPIAL championship. So you look at how they just continue to build guys, and you look at some of the freshmen they've brought up this year. I don't know if they're going to get beat for a while.
Right, yeah. I mean, they're young. They're still young, so which is scary. So, yeah, unfortunately for the rest of the WPIAL, it's Burrell's for the taking, right? They have to – someone's got to knock them off. So,
AAA, meanwhile, has had a couple of different winners over the last few years, but we got to repeat back-to-back. But let's first talk about round by round to let you know the scores. The opening round on Monday night, Upper St. Clair defeated Shaler 35-34. Franklin Regional over Moon 43-33. Armstrong over Belle Vernon 39-38. And Thomas Jefferson over Mars 35-32. Say this, I mean, these teams end up going into the top 4 seeds of the WPIAL, and that's a tall task for those teams on Wednesday night, but the WPIAL Steering Committee at least gave us 4 really good matches on Monday.
Great matches on Monday, and you look at some of those matches. The Upper St. Clair Shaler one came down to the wire, 35-34, right? And Armstrong and Belle Vernon. That was I can't say I'm surprised by Armstrong beating Belle Vernon, especially how beat up the Leopards are, but 39-38. So talk about some exciting first round matches. Yeah, this was definitely some good bouts here.
And that's really what they aim for, is just to try to get some good competition on those Monday night matches. On Wednesday, Cannon McMillan defeated Upper St. Clair 51-21. Hampton over Peters Township 42-33. Hempfield over West Allegheny 47-21. Seneca Valley over Franklin Regional 37-23. Waynesburg over Armstrong 52-12. Connellsville over Trinity 36-33. Greensburg Salem over North Allegheny 35-33. And Kiski over Thomas Jefferson 54-12. You look back through these matchups, Hampton defeats Peters Township, but Colton Gizzero not in the lineup for Peters Township. They end up giving up a forfeit. That may have swung the match for Hampton. Franklin Regional, Trinity, and North Allegheny all gave Seneca Valley, Connellsville, and Greensburg Salem, respectively, a tough matchup, but they end up falling just short.
Yeah, and I thought Hampton wrestled well against Peters Township. Even without Jezero in the lineup, I still think Hampton, probably would have won that match just based on the way they were wrestling. And as you said, some of those teams like Franklin Regional, they battled Seneca Valley tough, and even Trinity battled Connellsville tough. So yeah, it's nice to see the competitive nature of the WPIAL throughout. I mean, there's a lot of type matches and dual meets throughout. So it really shows you the level of competition here in the WPIAL.
3 of the 4 weren't close in the quarterfinals. Cannon McMillan over Hampton 62-3. Kiski over Greensburg Salem 62-6. And Waynesburg over Connellsville 52-22. But the one we want to talk about, Seneca Valley, defeats Hempfield 37-25. But it was really Hempfield that came away the winner on Wednesday night in a match that was tied. Goes to tiebreaker. Hempfield wins via tiebreaker. But then we find out the next day that Hempfield wrestles with a wrestler who is ineligible, and they have to forfeit that weight that wrestler wrestled, and therefore Seneca Valley gets the win. Yeah,
that was just incredible. And I was able to talk to some of the Seneca Valley coaching staff there, and Coach Kevin Wildrick talked about how, that was an interesting sort of dynamic for that team to come so close to beating Hempfield, because you lose to Hempfield, you're out. There is no wrestle back for you unless you make it to the semifinals. So, having that sort of feeling of defeat and your team season is over, let's get focused for the individual. The coaches were saying that the team sort of went out and maybe splurged a little bit, ate a lot, and had some guys overweight, and then you come back and you find out, wait a second, we have to have practice. Like, what do you mean? Because they gave them off Thursday after Wednesday. They're like, we got to have practice. Why? Because you're wrestling in a match on Saturday in the semifinals. And, you learn that obviously Hempfield, and I feel terrible for Coach Vince DeAugustine, because, I think it was a hard decision to make in order to say, hey, we messed up here. But that's just a bad situation all around.
And Vince DeAugustine asked, and about that wrestler in particular, to see if he was eligible, and he was by the school standards, so he wrestled him. Turns out, by PIAA standards, he was not eligible, and that's why the next day the administration found out by PIAA standards he was not able to go and shouldn't have went, and therefore Hempfield had to forfeit that match where he got a fall.
Yeah, right.
So that's a 12-point swing, and it ends up, could have Hempfield put somebody else in there and gotten the fall? Maybe. But
maybe not giving up. Maybe not giving up a fall. Maybe only giving up 3. So
it changes the whole dynamic of that match. And instead, Hempfield doesn't even have the opportunity to make up points or anything of that sort. Instead, they just have to give a forfeit there, and therefore losing the match.
Yeah, tough situation all around. But I think both programs handled it so well. I think Vince DeAugustine and the Hempfield staff just handled it so well and said, "Look, our guys came out to battle. There was a mistake made." We're still not going to take away from the season that these guys had. So, I think both programs, and I think Seneca Valley was very grateful and said, look, hey, we're just fortunate to be here. And they made the most of it, by the way. So, their seasons, their Cinderella seasons continue to go. And, unfortunate situation, but I'm sure many coaches are going to be learning from this.
You look at the semifinals and how it went down on Saturday at Trinity. Semifinals weren't as close. Cannon McMillan defeats Seneca Valley 47-17 and Kiski over Waynesburg 39-26.
Yeah, and I wasn't surprised by this. I thought Cannon Mac and Kiski area were head and shoulders ahead of the rest of the pack here, and I don't think either one of us were surprised to see Cannon Mac and Kiski come away with pretty convincing wins in the semifinals to set up that major matchup in the finals.
The third-place match, Seneca Valley defeats Waynesburg 39-31.
And that was an interesting matchup, Greg, because you look at, as you said, Seneca Valley, a team that shouldn't even been technically in that, still competing, and they come back and they beat Waynesburg, a team that had beat them earlier this year. In fact, it was the first competition of the season. Waynesburg in that match was without Jackson Henson. Seneca Valley was out without Tyler Gross, and that was another, I found out on Saturday, that was another sort of mishap on refs saying whether he could go or he couldn't go based on his descent plan. So Tyler Gross ends up they actually started wrestling match, and then they said, no, he can't wrestle. So that was an interesting match the first time around, and this time around, Seneca Valley got it done, and it was a much different team, a much different dynamic, and I think I called that too, Greg.
You did call that, and you got the victory for Seneca Valley for him. Good job. Way to go.
Wow. I mean, I'm not allowed to be mean to you, but you apparently are allowed to be condescending to me.
I wasn't calling you out that I picked McGuffey over Freedom, and you got that wrong, but
you could have. I mean, it's there for the taking.
And the championship you didn't get right either, but that's okay. You got your one victory. Good job.
Okay, so that's how it's going to be. I cannot wait to next week when the chains are off me and I'm free to just tear into you. Oh, you see, what you're doing is you're building up all this for me for next week, so just be prepared.
You're the only one with picks going into this weekend, so.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
you're the only one that has a target on his back.
Well, at least I'm making picks.
Speaking of the match with Seneca Valley, I felt like the biggest swing match was at 138. They get Luke Augustine into the lineup, and Drew Vlasnik gets the fall in the first period over Augustine. A match that could have went either way. Obviously, Vlasnik got the opening takedown, really dominated the action. But instead of having Jackson Henson in the spot, they decided to move Henson up, get Augustine in. And I'm sure Joe Throckmorton was expecting a win there. Instead, the fall comes for Seneca Valley, and that ends up really deciding this match in my eyes.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was probably the deciding factor for me as well. And I thought 38 was if you have Luke Augustine in there, I think it was a toss-up match. And, it was a gamble, and it just unfortunately didn't play out the way that Waynesburg wanted it to. And but overall, Seneca Valley just was on a roll, and they just kept on going. I mean, they were pumped after that win. I mean, how monumental is that? You're a team that theoretically you were eliminated a week before. Now you're going to the state tournament, and you're wrestling in a play-in match tonight against Carrick, which
should be a win.
Should be a pretty convincing win. And you're going to be wrestling in the state tournament. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it definitely is, and they matched up very well and played things right, too. They got away from Kyle Hammett. They got away from Jackson Henson, giving both of those guys forfeits. You stay away from their bigger guys. You get able to bump guys around, and it helped out, and that's what got Seneca Valley the win.
Yeah, I agree. They played it very smart. There was a well thought out plan and staying away from those big guns and Jackson Henson and Kyle Hamid. And, Louis Newell as well had a tough match against Wyatt Henson. I don't know if you saw that match or not, but that was a tight bout, which we knew it would be. But for a freshman against a senior, 2-time returning state finalist, I mean, that was Wyatt Henson gave him all he could handle.
Wyatt Henson had a big day. In addition to that, he also defeats Darren Miller.
Yeah.
He ends up losing to Newell in a tight match, but he battled him all the way to the third period. You had 4 of the top 10 wrestlers in the state right there at 120 pounds, and that was just incredible. Macri and Newell did not wrestle in that duel, but you still had Henson wrestling Darren Miller in the semis, and you had him wrestling Newell in the finals. You had Macri wrestling Miller. So you have 4 incredible wrestlers, and 3 of the 4 end up wrestling.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible, just the amount of talent there is in the WPIAL at that weight, and really a lot of weights. I mean, you look at Jackson Henson and Noah Levitt. They wrestled for the second time, and Jackson Henson was able to win again. So, it was just it's a lot of fun to see these high-quality wrestlers going at it on different teams.
In the championship, it was a tight match throughout, but Kiski does prevail. They defeat Cannon McMillan 33-24 to win their second straight WPIAL championship. The matchup started at 285 pounds, where Isaac Reed picks up a fall for Kiski area, a spot where Cannon McMillan got a decision the first go-around, so a 9-point swing to really start things off.
Yeah, but then Cannon Mac they delivered. So after Isaac Reed gets that fall, which you obviously like to see that, but then you go down to 106, and Jimmy Baxter and Sammy Starr are battling in a close match. I mean, yeah. Sammy Starr and Jimmy Baxter came down to the wire. Right at the end, though, I forget exactly what Sammy Starr was trying to do. I think he was on bottom, and Jimmy Baxter was able to get him in a position where he got a quick fall with 20 seconds left in the match. It was 5 minutes and 40 seconds into the match. Jimmy Baxter picks up a fall. So Sammy Starr was about to only give up 3 points, but instead he gives up 6 with Jimmy Baxter getting a fall, which was just, I thought right there, man, that could have changed some things down the road as well.
Yeah, and you know what we'll talk about here in a second, but Cannon McMillan got some breaks because then at 113, Michael Binney and Dom Giordano, that's a toss-up match. 100%. It could go either way, and both guys had to lead at one point, and Binney ends up winning in the ultimate tiebreaker. But if Kiski gets that match, that's another 6-point swing.
Right, and Binney, I thought, just showed a lot of guts in that match, and those two battled to ultimate tiebreaker. Both their guys were just heavily breathing, and you could tell, like, just get this match over with. Those aren't fun times to be. You don't even think about anything. You just get me off this mat as soon as possible. What happens. But Binney does hang on for an ultimate tiebreaker win, 8-7. And that gives Cannon Mac 9 points right off the bat. And then you get that matchup that you want with Logan Macri and Darren Miller. And Logan Macri pretty much controlled that match. He wasn't able to get anything more than a decision, getting a 5-1 decision over Darren Miller, 2 highly ranked wrestlers, and both were returning state medalists from last year. So, that was a good 3 matches for Cannon Mac.
Yeah, and then from there, Kiski gets a big win from Bobby Lawrence and a tight one against Jacob Gardner. Kenny Heyman weighed in at 126. A lot of times throughout the season, he's been weighing in at 120, and him and Macri have been flip-flopping between 20 and 26. So they weigh him in at 26 and bump him to 32.
And I'm not surprised by that because you have Jacob Gardner, who's back in the lineup, and he's a guy who was a starter last year and has some experience. He's still coming on to his own in the season, but I'm not surprised by you put Heyman up because he's used to wrestling up at 26, despite the fact that he has been weighing in at 120. You figure, okay, we're going to get Logan down at 120, and we can switch maybe 26 and 32 between Heyman and Gardner. But I think in their mind, in Jeff Upson's mind, it's, hey, Gardner's going to steal one, and then Ken Heyman's going to get a win here as well. So, and Gardner just almost did. I mean, he only lost 3-2 to Bobby Lawrence, and that was a tight match. So, but then Kenny Heyman gets a 6-2 decision. You're thinking, okay, they're sitting in a good position now.
Yeah, really, Gardner could have won that one without a problem. And then you go to 138. Noah Levitt beats Tim Risco. But this one was back and forth, too. You would think Levitt would end up winning this match because he's pretty much dominated the action with Risco to this point, but it goes to overtime.
Yeah, I mean, people sleep on Tim Risco a lot, and Noah Levitt. I mean, it's tough when you wrestle a guy so many times and you know that person so well. But Noah Levitt, I mean, Risco actually got, I believe, the first takedown in that match, and it was definitely a battle. I mean, Noah Levitt's definitely, he's got an uphill battle to win that WPIAL championship with some of those guys like Jackson Henson and Tim Risco as well. I mean, he was right there with him. He wrestled very tough, I thought. But I mean, you just look at that came down to overtime. So you look at that and say, if that goes the other way, I mean, that changes the whole complexity of the match.
Yeah, it definitely does. And then from there, Kiski starts to go on a roll. Cam Connor with a win, Jack Bloomer, and Nick Delp. And one thing we want to mention, Nick Delp ends up getting the fall on Skylar Adams. We did touch base with Jeff Upson, the head coach of Canamac, today regarding Skylar, as some of you may have heard that he ended up in a bad situation where he was on the mat in pain. They actually had to call an ambulance, take him out by stretcher. Just was not moving on the mat. Jeff Upson did mention that Skylar has been released from the hospital. He was released yesterday, so that would have been Sunday. And he's doing okay. There's no major injuries, and he should have a full recovery. So
that's great to hear.
It definitely is. And, prayers go out to Skylar as he continues to heal from what was a scary situation.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, emotions were running high at that point because you got Nick Delp who's locks up the double bar arms, and he's taking him over. And, obviously you're pumped up. You want to get that fall. And once he does, but all of a sudden Skylar's not moving, right? And, I was right there next to the match, Matt taking photos, and I just saw what looked like him trying to put up his finger, like injury time, because he was not in a good way. He was not in a good position whatsoever, and very uncomfortable, a lot of pain, and the neck. The worry that I had was the neck, right? And you see just him not moving, you get a little concerned about that. So definitely a sort of touch and go moment there on that match. And really you look at it, that changes. I mean, it's basically like halftime in that sense, because you stop the match, and it was at least a 30-minute stoppage for that between the next match. But and Kiski was going on a roll, like you said. Noah gets that big win in overtime. Cam Connor, although I thought he probably should get bonus on Zach Rohaley. Zach Rohaley wrestled him very tough.
He's been wrestling tough these last few weeks.
He certainly has been. I think he's going to be the difference in some of these matches come Hershey. But Rohaley only loses 5-1, and then Jack Bloomer actually. He didn't strike me. I mean, he only beat Preivew 9-6, and that was sort of a funky match there. And I thought Bloomer potentially could get bonus there. But then Delp sort of makes up for that and gets bonus. I thought one of those three wrestlers between Cam Connor, Jack Bloomer, and Nick Delp, I thought one of those three had to get bonus points. And Nick Delp ends up being the one who does. But unfortunately, that just takes all the air out of their sails there, because you're stopping for 30 some minutes, and Canamac they're fired up after that one.
Yeah, and you know what? You go right into a toss-up match at 170 with Evan Miller and Colin Murray. Garrett Ninehouse actually weighed in at 170, just above 160, so he could bump to 182 pounds. In the last match, he wrestled Nick Delp at 160, so they thought going into this maybe they can not give bonus away to Delp and then get Miller on Murray to get Ninehouse up to Logan Pollock. It worked out. Ninehouse gets the pin on Pollock, and Miller defeats Colin Murray 6-4.
Right, yeah, and I said this before. I don't know if it was the fact that there was that long stoppage, and you just get kind of cold and you're not warming up, and your mind's a lot of different places. But Colin Murray did not look good in that match. He looked sort of just stuck in cement, almost like he wasn't moving his feet. He looked tired, and I thought Colin Murray was going to be the difference in this match. As we said, he wasn't in there the first time around they wrestled, but hats off to Evan Miller. Evan Miller wrestled him tough and was able to come away with a 6-4 decision. And I thought, man, that's Canamac's still alive in this one. And then, of course, you're thinking, wait, where's Garrett Ninehouse wrestling at? And you're like, oh, wait, the 60-pounder's bumping up to 182 pounds, so just 22 pounds ahead of what he's normally at. And he goes out and gets a fall over a good Logan Pollock.
Right.
I mean, this is a guy who has some varsity experience under his belt here. He's not just a JV that's fresh off the bench. This is a guy who battles tough with guys in his own weight class, but then Garrett Ninehouse says, not so fast, and he gets that fall, which really made the match certainly exciting.
We were tied up with 2 matches to go, and Troy Kuhn weighs in at 195, but usually wrestles 220 because that's Danny Starr's spot. They instead sent Kuhn out to wrestle Alec Hendel, and Kuhn picks up the win 2-0. So we were going into the last match, Kiski up 3, and you're thinking about possible tiebreaker scenarios. Who would win? And I think it would go down to first points scored in each match, and it was going to be in Cannon McMillan's favor. So Kiski needed to win to get that championship. And Zach O'Haley's been wrestling very tough over these last few weeks, but Danny Starr able to get the takedown and the fall in the first period to ice it for Kiski.
And I thought that was a great move by Chris Heater, putting Troy Kuhn on Alec Hendel at 195, because Kuhn is a guy who's less experienced. He doesn't have a whole lot of he has a lot of mixed results. He's kind of inconsistent in that case. He gets pinned a lot. He ends up pinning people a lot. But
and didn't Rohaley pin him the first time
correct.
around?
Yeah, Rohaley pinned him in the first time around. So great idea to have Troy Kuhn off of Rohaley and then put him on Alec Hendel. And him able to get away with a decision there really helped Kiski, because you look at Danny Starr and you're thinking, okay, he's one of our leaders on this team. And I think, you kind of can put it in his hands and you feel okay with it. And clearly it paid off because, after getting that initial takedown, he puts Zach Rohaley right on his back. A guy who's been wrestling very, very hard, and normally he's the one getting bonus points for Cannon Max. So, if that would have went down the wire, if Danny would have got that fall early, I don't know where this match would have ended up going, but he doesn't leave any question for it, getting that fall and giving Kiski the win.
And winning their second straight WPIAL championship. So now we move into the state tournament where Kiski area will be on the bottom half of the bracket. They will get the winner of Central Dauphin and Boyertown, which you have to like their odds there in that opening match. If they win, they'll get the big matchup in the quarterfinals, likely against Nazareth.
Yeah, so I think Kiski will most likely see Central Dauphin, but they could see Boyertown. I think the last update I got, Boyertown was ahead after a few matches, but I think Central Dauphin will probably come out on top there. And then Kiski area, I think, is not going to have too many issues with getting through Central Dauphin. In fact, they wrestled them last year at the same way. They wrestled Central Dauphin, defeated them, and then you said Nazareth. They're wrestling Spring Grove tonight, and Nazareth's then going to have to wrestle Mifflin County should they win that match. And I think you're likely going to see a Kiski Nazareth, the two teams that finished first and third last year in the state tournament. So, not too shabby with those two going at it.
Do you think the winner of that match makes the state finals?
Yeah, I think the winner of that match absolutely makes the state finals, in my opinion. I think either Kiski or Nazareth, whoever comes out in that quadrant there is going on to the finals. Sticking
to the bottom half of the bracket, Seneca Valley, we mentioned they are wrestling at Carrick tonight. And the winner gets Archbishop Wood in the opening round. You got to like Seneca Valley's chances there in that match. And they would wrestle Cedar Cliff or Springford in the quarterfinals. And, I got to like Seneca Valley there, too. They may very well be in a good spot to get in the semifinals.
Honestly, Greg, I think they are going to be in the semifinals. And people are saying that's crazy for me to say that. But you look at the path. I mean, they're going to have 2 easy matches, in my opinion. Carrick's, that's not going to be a problem for them. Archbishop Wood, they're not going to have any trouble with Archbishop Wood. And you look at Cedar Cliff and Springford. I don't know who comes out on top of that. I think Cedar Cliff will, based on the fact that they have some good wins, but Springford's sneaky good. They've got a couple guys in the lineup right now, Chase Smith and Joey Milano, a freshman, and wrestling at 160 now. So Springford, they surprised a lot of people by beating Downingtown West to get to the finals against Counts Rock South. So I really don't know. I'm not too confident on my pick for Cedar Cliff there. So I think Seneca Valley is going to have the hot hand. I mean, don't underestimate a team on a roll, right? And, they're grateful to even be in this situation. They're not going to let anything, slip through their fingers, that's for sure. So, if you would have, and you saw them afterwards, after they won that third place match, they were pumped up. I mean, it was like they just won this championship, So I think they're excited. I think they're ready to go, and I really do see Seneca Valley in the semifinals.
To join us to talk about their team is their head coach, Chris Heater. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, Chris, right before you came on, I had to mention to Jeff that I was the one that picked you last week, and he did not, and he's just had to deal with that the entire show. Do you think it's warranted?
So you didn't handle it too well, huh?
I did. Chris, what did I tell you after the match? I said, I was wrong, and you came out and you proved me wrong, and I was happy to congratulate you on that big win.
Well, we appreciate it. It was a great match.
Well, Chris, obviously, diving right into that match, I know you and I talked before the match has even started, and Cannon McMillan, a couple of lineup adjustments. They have Kenny Heyman weighed in at 126, so they could potentially bump him to 132. They had Garrett Ninehouse weighed in at 170, so they could move him to 182. Were you surprised by those couple of moves?
I kind of thought they might do that. I even kind of anticipated Gardner being in the mix in there. And they took Skylar Adams from basically who's wrestled matches at 45 all the way to 60. So, I mean, they basically took 4 guys and went up 2 weights with 4 other guys to kind of stretch things out a little bit and try to get the matchups with us. So, I mean, in matches like that, you got to be all in. So, I mean, it was obvious that they were.
And you guys had a couple of tough breaks in the opening of the match. Jimmy Baxter in a tight match with Sammy Starr ends up getting the fall. And then Dom Giordano in a back-and-forth match with Michael Binney ends up losing a tight to ultimate tiebreaker decision. Were you a little concerned after those 2 matches?
Well, I mean, looking at the results of those 2, I mean, obviously I was hoping to maybe split in through there if we could. Obviously I thought we were a little better prepared at those 2 weights than we were, in December when we wrestled them. And in December that, they got us for 12 points at those 2 weights. So, I felt like, really anything that we could do in there through there, those 2 weights would be better and would help us. So, obviously at 6, I mean, we were going for the win there and he ends up getting stuck. So, I mean, I don't fault him for going after it. I mean, he was certainly building some momentum in that match, and we were seconds away from that being just a 3-point decision for them or for us to getting pinned. So I mean, obviously there's a lot of roller coaster moments in that match right there. I mean, hey, we come out and we were down 9 through those 2 weights, but I thought both of our guys wrestled really hard there.
And then after 113, Logan Macri, he gets a decision on Darren Miller. But then 126 is a match that I thought definitely was swung in your favor. Bobby Lawrence coming out on top of Jacob Gardner 3-2, and Jacob Gardner is a guy who wasn't in the lineup for Cannon Mac last time you guys wrestled. So, but Bobby Lawrence comes away with a big win. You had to be excited after seeing that.
I was really happy for Bobby. I mean, he's a senior in our lineup, and he's just kind of been the quiet guy that's working hard, and everything that he's doing for the team. And last week our match at home with Greensburg, so I mean, it came down to he happened to be the last guy wrestling, and you would have thought the match was going to be decided on that match. I mean, our team was just cheering and rooting for him so hard, and pretty much because of what he provides and what he's given to these guys as a teammate. And so yeah, I was very excited for him. I thought he wrestled well and really helped us out there in picking up the win.
Yeah, and just to touch on that topic real quick, Chris, I mean, we talked about this on Saturday, and I think this is something that gets overlooked, but the team aspect of it is so important to you and Kiski area. I mean, you have the shirts and the sweatshirts with team on the front of it. You see other teams, and it's like the guys are kind of interested in what's going on in the match, but your guys they're basically wrestling the matches there with their teammates. Not every single wrestler, they're focused on their match. And, is that something that you preach, or is that just naturally, does that naturally happen with those guys? Because it seems like that team dynamic is so strong with Kiski.
Well, I think they embrace it, but, it's pushed heavily from us. I mean, I constantly talk to them about, only focusing and worrying on about what's in front of us, how important the team is, and I started 3 years ago putting the team shirt together and putting the team shirt on our guys. And, and I just tell them each year when I give the shirt out, this is just a reminder, to each one of you that how important every one of you are to, us advancing as far as we can go, that it's not just about the elite guys, or it's not about, I mean, there's a lot of good stories and stuff on our team, but it's about every one of them. And it's about even the guys that don't get a chance to go out there and wrestle in the dual meet that are good practice partners in the room. So, I mean, I preach the team thing heavily, and I just feel very strongly about it.
Well, Chris, you guys ended up rattling off 4 wins in the middleweights from 138 to 160, and then the unfortunate thing happened with Skylar Adams, which he's doing okay. But how tough was it to get your guys after the long break to really regroup and say, hey, we still have a match going on here?
Well, I pulled them aside and just talked to them. Hey, I mean, obviously our prayers are with Skylar, and we hope he's. That he has a short, recovery. And I said, but there's 4 matches left here to decide this championship. I said, you guys, need to refocus and be ready to go. And I mean, I felt bad for Murray because, he was winning the Waynesburg match 7-1 and got caught in a headlock and got pinned. Mm-hmm. And then the break with Skylar getting injured and then he's the first guy out on the mat. And, that was a very tough thing for him to go through, I think, as well. And obviously that was a match that was a weight that we were really hoping to win. And it didn't work out for us there. So, and then they got Nine House coming at us and with Logan Pollock and Nine House he's a handful. I mean, he's definitely a high-end wrestler. I mean, he's a really good technician, and we feel kind of the same about our guy, and so they got us 2 in a row there and tied the match up.
And Chris, when I'm looking back at that 45 through 60, Cam Conner and Jack Bloomer both get regular decisions, but Nick Delp gets the fall. And I thought 145 to 160, I thought you had to get bonus points at least one of those weights. Was that your line of thinking as well?
Yeah, I was. I mean, obviously when we wrestled him the first time, and we had Connor against Preivew. I mean, we had a 15-4 decision in there.
Yeah.
Jack Bloomer's. He's a pinner. I mean, he goes after falls. I mean, so does Cam. So I mean, you're hoping that we got to pick up some bonus in here to close this in a little bit more, before we get out of these middle weights. And, the match with Hershey and Levitt, I mean, was, I felt like that was going to be a close match. It was a little closer than I thought it would be. I mean, right. Going to Ultimate Rideout, but, both those guys just put everything they had into that match. I mean, it was a lot of fun to watch, but yeah, I felt like we needed some bonus in through there. And Nick certainly can provide that for you at any given time. I mean, he's a tough kid.
And then you look at 170, I'd say that was a toss-up match there between Evan Miller and Colin Murray. And as you said, Colin he didn't have the day he wanted to, I'm sure, after losing to Waynesburg, being up big in that match and then giving up the fall. And, then the fall to Evan Miller. After that, Garrett Ninehouse comes out, and like you said, he just does what he does, and he's a great technician, even though he's up 2 weights. But then the decision to put Troy Kuhn in at 195, I think that was the pinnacle of this match here, and I thought that was such a good move by you to put Troy Kuhn in at 95 away from Rohaley and on Hendel and get that decision. Was that something that when you looked at this before the match, you're thinking you wanted to get Troy down at 95 against Hendel and away from Rohaley?
Absolutely. I mean, I told the guys, I said, depending on how things go, you guys got to check in with me, right around the 82 match and stuff, and I'll let you know what we're doing. And, obviously when things got tied up 24-24, I said, hey, I'm switching you. And I just told both of them, I said, we just need a decision from each of you. You just have to go out and win. We don't need bonus. We just need you to go win.
And you had to feel pretty confident with Danny Starr. I mean, being a guy who's been a starter on your lineup for several years now, and a guy who's come through so many times before for you, you had to feel pretty confident going into that final bout with Danny Starr wrestling at 220.
Well, obviously because of what he's done in the past for us. I mean, in my position, obviously a decision like that can be made a little bit easier when that he's been there before and he's been able to do that. Rohaley's a big kid. I mean, there was some size difference there, and it's like, hopefully we can stay focused. Hopefully, this isn't too big of a moment for Danny. And, I told him, I said, hey, you just got to win. And, after he got the pin, he was like, is that all right? I'm like, yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah,
you can't really do much better, Danny. Okay.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, and I think I probably watched that video, that clip of that last match probably 50 times yesterday, and a lot of it was just to watch, what he did, but behind him you could see all of our kids, and you talk about how all the kids are invested and they're deep into the team thing, and if you focus through Danny and Rohaley and watch our bench and stuff, I mean, if you can't see the team in full effect on that bench, I mean, if I watched it 50 times yesterday, I think I got goosebumps 50 times just watching it, just seeing not only what Danny did, but what was going on behind him with our team.
I was on the side of the mat taking photos, Chris, and all my photos of the end of the match, it's just a sea of blue, all with the team. They all were wearing the same thing. You see the same guys wearing the same thing. Not one of them had a different shirt on. It was all the same thing, and they're all jumping up at the same time. The coaching staff included, trainers, everybody's jumping up. And it's pretty cool to capture that moment and see. Just that I think if anything sums it up, that a picture like that does, because it just shows how unified that whole not only team is, but the organization. And I know you touched on this when we talked about the support that you get from the administration and just from the Kiski community. So it had to be a lot of good fun and a good moment for you guys.
It was. I got an email from a guy that owns a barber business in Vandergrift, and he's probably owned that business in Vandergrift for probably 35 years. I coached both of his boys years ago in football, and he sent me an email today and just wanted to let me know how proud the community is of our kids and what our program does, and just to know that, they're keeping an eye on us. They might not know a whole lot about wrestling, but they're just so proud of, the community is so proud of what we do here with our sport. And, it's just nice to hear those kinds of things, because as a coach, you just feel like when you get that kind of feedback that you're doing the right thing.
Well, Chris, you guys get to head back to the Giants Center, where you look to get another medal and obviously look to advance further than you did a year ago. You guys get the opening matchup against the winner of Central Dauphin and Boyertown. And I know you don't like to look too far ahead, but I think the match everyone has circled is the potential quarterfinal against you and Nazareth, where the winner is a favorite to get to the finals. Have you started to look at them on paper, and have you started to focus on how things may go against Nazareth?
Well, obviously, I mean, I've told you before, I mean, I try to keep the team focused on the match in front of us, but as a coach, you don't really have that luxury. I mean, I have to look there and beyond and just, kind of start to take a look at things and see how things shape up. And yeah, obviously I've looked at our matchup with Nazareth and I'm excited about it. I think, they obviously have a great program. I mean, they're the defending state champs, and they're well coached and have a lot of talent on that team again this year. So I mean, it'll take our best effort. But I do like the matchup with them. We had a heck of a match with them 2 years ago, went down to criteria. So I mean, we obviously have a history of battling with them. So.
And I look at the bottom half and I get excited just looking at all the potential there. And Greg, he looked past Central Dauphin already. He wasn't even worried about them yet. He's not giving me my team enough credit there. But you wrestled Central Dauphin in that same round last year as well. So kind of a familiar path for you. And Central Dauphin and Boyertown wrestling as we speak. But you look at that, and I have the luxury of looking at far ahead at some of these matches. And I think and I've looked at Nazareth and Kiski on paper for several times over the last few weeks. And I'd say it's definitely there's going to be a lot of good matches should that match happen. And you look at some of those big names, and I think Isaac Reed really is the difference in having a guy like Danny Starr and Troy Kuhn. If he can be, if he can just stay off his back and he can just, do what he did this past weekend, I think it's definitely yours for the taking. So, when you talk about guys like Troy and some of those guys who you said aren't those stars, or even like Colin Murray, a guy who didn't have the weekend he wanted to, how do you refocus them and say, look, guys, we're more than capable of doing this. We just got to believe.
I mean, obviously I've had some conversations. I mean, I don't think Colin had the weekend he was hoping for. I don't think Logan Pollock had the weekend he was hoping for. Sammy Starr wrestled his butt off and ended up getting pinned. And, and I just try to let those guys know. I mean, it's not lack of effort out there. I mean, you guys are giving everything you have. Obviously it's nice to step on the mat and win every match, but we know that doesn't happen, for a lot of guys. And it's, what kind of character do you have and how do you move forward from that and stuff? And that, this season is long. And the nice thing about it is that if a match doesn't go your way, the next 6 minutes is usually not far down the road. So you have an opportunity to kind of shake that off as quickly as you can. So, just a few of those guys, they just need to regroup. And we had a really good day of practice today. And, those guys were back working hard today. So, I think the conversations I had with them Saturday and yesterday, seemed to have worked because, again, today they came ready to work. So I was very happy to see that in the room today.
Well, Chris, congratulations on winning your second straight WPIAL championship, and best of luck as you head into the PIAA championships. We're looking forward to seeing how the team performs.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you again.
Thanks, Chris, and I'll look forward to seeing you down in Hershey. Safe travels, okay?
Yes, you too. All right.
Thanks again to Chris Heater for joining us on the show. Always great to talk to Chris. And congratulations again to Kiski and really Kanemak, too. It was just a great match and a great day of wrestling. It was an awesome finals to be at.
All four of those teams, Waynesburg, Seneca Valley, Kanemak, Kiski, I mean, they are what WPIAL wrestling's all about. I mean, they all came out and they brought it individually and as a team, and I think it was just a great display of wrestling. So definitely looking forward to seeing how they can do on the state level.
From a broadcast partner, Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Thanks for listening in to WarUp on the WPIAL.